When it comes to new Super Smash Bros. Fighters, I have been begging for one character more than any, and I don't care how many Smash Fighter request videos I need to make. I will suggest this character every single time until it happens. In fact, I'm lying to all of you. I'll keep requesting it for every Smash game they make for the rest of all time, even if they fulfill the request, because it plays on the most versatile concept in this series. And if we're being all the way real, it's infinitely scalable. I'm sure long-time subscribers of this channel already know who I'm alluding to, but for everyone else, well, they should get subscribed and click the like button. Did you do it yet? I'll wait.
2 hours later.
Seriously, I made a lot of people irrationally angry last week with the positive video I made about the feature everybody wants to hate. I can use every subscriber I can get. That character is Pokemon Trainer, and not just with any Pokemon, not the one we have, but specifically a new trainer with a different set of starters from another region that scales differently than the current Pokemon Trainer. If I could shoot for the moon, I'd say use the starters from the eventual Gen 10 games in literally any order but the water, grass, fire order the current trainer has. If I had to pick now, for the sake of suggesting a general moveset concept in this video, I'd say go for Coco, who would be a relatively slow far range fighter, Quaxwell, who would be average speed mixed range fighter, and Meowscarada, who would be a fast up close and personal glass cannon. Just as a quick off the cuff suggestion. Most important to me though is in regards to the move Pokemon change. I would prefer if the next Pokemon in line was something the player has direct control over, because as a Pokemon Trainer main and ultimate, I always shake my fist at not being able to go directly from Squirtle to Charizard, or Ivysaur to Squirtle, or Charizard to Ivysaur. To put it more plainly, give me the option to switch the normal way, or hold the button for longer to skip the next Pokemon in the rotation. As for individual moves, they can mostly go in any direction depending on which references they want to make to the Pokemon's movesets in the game, and I could be here all day suggesting which individual moves those moves should be, but in the interest of time, I'll just say Fuecoco should have a series of far range fire and sound based moves like Incinerate, Round, or even Yawn, and a modified Baby Torch Song. Quaxwell, I think, could have an Aqua Cutter based Swordy moveset, mostly because my Aqua Step centered moveset idea wouldn't really fit in the team player mindset for PT. And they can go in a similar direction to Eddie and Tekken and give him like a dancey vibe for his normals and movement as well. Meowscarada, on the other hand, I think should definitely have Flower Trick, and that move should be its neutral special that progressively increases the damage and knockback of Meowscarada's other moves, not too dissimilar to how Inkling's Ink mechanic works in Ultimate. I think each Pokemon could also have a passive ability mechanic as well, maybe even give them their hidden abilities if you really want to have them more in line with modern Smash Bros. Characters' power levels. Obviously, the thumbnail and my wallpaper over here that you can grab as well, alongside a bunch of other 4K wallpapers by becoming an 8-bit member at shop.watchredirect.com, gave it away, but a fighter concept I have significantly less personal stake in as a fan of the series, but a lot of interest in as a fan of how Smash tends to translate original gameplay mechanics into the formula, would have to be Atlas and Peabody from Portal 2. And that's because I think Portal is long overdue for a spot. It's a heavy hitter from Valve, it's a staple in PC gaming, and even more importantly to the spirit of Smash, it's provided Nintendo devs a decent amount of inspiration, with the Breath of the Wild team in particular citing Portal as a key reference point for the modern day design of Zelda games. And it's the reason for that inspiration that has inspired me to include them in this video, because there's a lot of fun, unique directions the Smash devs could take them in. If it was up to me, I'd make them a mix of Ice Climbers and Rosalina and Luma in Smash, and the Powerpuff Girls in Multiverses, where they are two fighters in one in a puppet master sort of role that allows the player to switch between the two as leader for higher speed on Atlas but higher strength on Peabody. I think independently positioning the two of them like Rosalina does with Luma would also serve this character well in terms of fully realizing the representation of the game they come from, and obviously most of their moves would be centered around a portal mechanic where the player can set up portals to facilitate interesting combos, diabolical spikes, and hard to predict recoveries. This mechanic would be game changing for the Smash franchise, much like blocks were for Steve, so it could be a scary thing to add, but I think as long as it's integrated into the game early, it will have the opportunity to be balanced in a fair way as the game's life moves forward, unlike Steve, who was added into Ultimate at the tail end of Nintendo's active support for the game, on top of being developed in the quarantine era. A long requested character that I feel has even more of a case for inclusion in Smash, not only because it was already a top fighters ballot contender for Japanese fans, but also thanks to its franchise's increased success outside of Japan since the release of Monster Hunter World is a Monster Hunter. It's a fighter that more than likely would be a sword fighter at its core, but it's prime for an imaginative implementation of the archetype thanks to the wide range of weapon types in combination with the series staple mechanics that could be worked into the character's toolkit to separate them within the Smash sword fighter ethos. Like whetstone weapon sharpening to say temporarily give sword moves supercharged sweet spots while sharpened, or different ammo types that range moves could cycle through, or even a file charging mechanic to reference charge weapons, my personal Monster Hunter favorite in Wilds. There's a ton of really cool directions they can go in with this character. Don't even get me started on how many sick alts they could give the character. Honestly, they could even give a Monster Hunter fighter a unique mechanic that changes certain attributes based on the armor depicted in each alt. That may make a lot of mains of other characters jealous, but I'll add, as somebody that mains a character that originated from an RPG, that didn't stop them from only giving hero critical attacks. But I digress. Ring Fit Adventure was an offbeat heavy hitter for Nintendo Switch, and that kind of success typically tends to coincide with a representative in Smash, so Ring Fit Trainee is my next suggestion. I think the obvious path for Ring Fit Trainee would be to follow the Animal Crossing framework, where the characters have a few similarities in terms of attributes and a move or two, but they ultimately have their own well-defined identities, and it would be very easy since, unlike Wii Fit before it, Ring Fit Adventure is already an RPG, and the player character is already a fighter canonically. So all they need to do to incorporate Ring Fit Trainee into the Smash roster is adapt the character's abilities in Ring Fit to Smash, with Wii Fit Trainer serving as a straightforward foundation to build from. From Software is being positioned as a key partner for Nintendo in the Switch 2 era, and I think it'd be a great addition to their ongoing collaboration if they added a Smash fighter to this list. I think an Elden Ring character would be the best path forward to achieve this. In full transparency, I haven't gotten the chance to sit down with Elden Ring proper, although I have played a few hours of Night Rain and plan to play the original game when Switch 2 releases. All of that said, I don't have an intimate understanding of every possibility for Elden Ring abilities, so feel free to suggest potential ideas of your own if you're an Elden Ring fan and think you could do better. From what I do know, I know the mimics were a big topic of discussion, so maybe having a special based on that could be interesting. I know there are a lot of different weapon types, so weaving a selection of them into the character's moveset akin to Byleth's moveset in Ultimate could be a cool idea. And I know Magic, although a contentious part of the game, it is in the game, so that should also play some sort of role here as well. And I know Smash has no shortage of sword fighters in the game. I already even suggested one myself just now, so they would definitely be better off focusing hard on what makes Elden Ring specifically unique to help this character stand out and be an exciting addition for as many people as possible. That said, I'm interested in seeing what specific moves and abilities that you can add to the things I mentioned you guys could come up with. Nintendo loves a good opportunity for a bit of cross promo, and they also love keeping things a little weird to keep Smash fans on their toes. So the next character I want to suggest is Drag and Driver, or whatever they want to call the playable characters in Drag and Drive. I think the way to fit this character into Smash is to copy a bit of Multiverse's homework for a change and taking how LeBron works, specifically in terms of the basketball mechanic, and then tie all of that together with elements from Rob to inform how the character could theoretically operate in the air, since the Smash devs could easily sell a rocket-propelled hovering situation for the vehicles the Drag and Driver uses. Because I mean, look at them, they got sci-fi vibes, kinda. I think this is one of those characters that could run the gamut in terms of power level. It's a unique concept for Smash, and that typically leads to a way undertuned character like Piranha Plant, but it could also end up being a really good character like the aforementioned Steve. I think worst case scenario, the character would be memorable and give Drag and Drive an easy path to becoming a long-running franchise if that's something that Nintendo would want for that game. A pick that's a bit more predictable in my opinion would have to be a Mortal Kombat character. It's the only only major fighting game franchise that isn't currently represented in the Smash franchise in some way, so to me, it's kind of a matter of time. Obviously, they'd need to tune down the gratuitous violence, but it certainly wouldn't be the first time they made similar concessions.
Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is for good boys and girls of many different ages, so we decided not to feature her.
The only real question is which Mortal Kombat character. In my mind, the easy options are between Sub-Zero and Scorpion, and I think of the two, Scorpion is the play simply because his catchphrase makes him just that little bit more iconic. This is a straightforward character in terms of implementation. We've been here 4 times before so far with the traditional FGC characters. Just take Scorpion's moves and combos, adapt the inputs to how Smash works with the option to use them in a more traditional manner for a slight buff in power, then profit. I personally hate the FGC archetype overall. Terry is probably the only one that feels even a little bit at home in Smash. I personally don't even really like Mortal Kombat, but I do know a lot of people that do, and I think including Scorpion would be a win for what it would mean for Smash and Mortal Kombat as iconic franchises. League of Legends is a modern day gaming icon that has grown into a massive IP that branched off into spin-offs in and out of its medium. I only ever engaged with the franchise recently with 2KXO, and it's that game that made this suggestion a no-brainer for me. As far as which rep they should bring over to Smash, I'd say Jinx, because she's definitely the most iconic rep from the outside looking in, given her recent inclusion in 2KXO or her starring role in Arcane. As far as abilities, this is another one where I don't have much personal experience. I have never even looked at more than a few minutes of League gameplay, and while she is now in 2KXO, a game I have played a lot of, she wasn't available to play in the test that I put a lot of time into. I'd assume that they could pretty easily approach this similarly to how I suggested they handle Scorpion, but this time they have at least 2 games that I'm aware of and an anime to pull from, so I'm sure she would be a pretty straightforward character to implement. Based on what I have seen, she would probably be a heavy zoner given the minigun and rocket launcher situation, but again, I'd leave the particulars up to the League fans. My only thought is she should be in the game because I think League is a game worthy of celebrating in this way, and she is the most universally recognizable character right now. Doom is easily a Mount Rushmore of gaming contender thanks to its massive contribution to one of its most prevalent genres. A lot of people have wanted Doom to make its way to Smash, and I think recent events, Xbox buying half of the gaming industry in the last decade or so, have made this more feasible than ever considering their major support for Ultimate last time around. I think Doom the Dark Ages in particular gives Smash devs a lot to work with given the increased focus on CQC, but even without it, we literally just talked about a zoner. What's one more? Especially when, if they wanted to go out of their way to make Doom Slayer unique, they could easily take the shotgun up close and personal angle, even without the Dark Ages inspo. But I do think adapting Dark Ages mechanics to Smash is the smartest way to go about it, so literally just do that. Smash Bros has become the marquee celebration of the video game industry, and it's gotten the chance to honor pretty much every major touchstone within it. There's one important contributor that isn't included in that though, and that last puzzle piece would have to be PlayStation. A much requested surrogate for this celebration on the internet would be Crash Bandicoot, but I think a much more apt avatar for that brand, a character that they actually own, would have to be Astro Bot. And I think Astro Bot specifically is a great choice not only because of the full circle moment of PlayStation essentially making a Nintendo game that resulted in a Smash rep, but more importantly because Astro Bot is already actively being used by PlayStation as a blank slate that can be adapted to celebrate any and all of their characters. The moveset is another straightforward one in my opinion. They could take all of his abilities from Rescue Mission, including the special levels where Astro Bot gains abilities from the most iconic PlayStation characters. It's really a missing link sort of canvas where whatever kind of fighter is lacking can be filled in by Astro Bot thanks to the chameleon-like nature of its design. That's what I think. What do you think? What fighters do you want to see come to Smash on Switch 2? Let me know that and more in the comments down below. And while you're down there, remember, click the like button, subscribe. If you're already subscribed, share this video with a friend, and maybe go check out shop.watchredirect.com for our membership perks and, you know, the wallpaper that I mentioned before. Just like Redirect's executive producer Trev L. Steinberg or any of the other names you see scrolling on the screen did. Okay, that's it for me. See you in the next video.